Ibn Arabi did not begin his journey searching for hidden figures or extraordinary events. He began where most meaningful journeys begin, inside ordinary life, with prayer, with attention, with a quiet sensitivity to moments that others pass by without noticing. In his early years, Ibn Arabi was known not for spectacle, but for presence. He watched how people moved through the world. He noticed how words lingered longer than intended, how certain encounters stayed with him after they ended, how some moments carried a weight that could not be explained by circumstance alone. He understood something subtle even then. Not everything meaningful announces itself loudly. In Sufi tradition, wisdom does not always arrive as an answer. Sometimes it arrives as a question that refuses to leave you. Khidr is often described as someone who appears when a person is ready. But readiness, in this context, has little to do with knowledge or status. It has everything to do with perception, the ability to notice, the willingness to pause, the courage to admit that what you see may not be all that is happening. Ibn Arabi later wrote that some encounters are not interruptions in life, they are mirrors held up to it. They do not change your path. They reveal what has already been unfolding. Think about moments in your own life when something shifted quietly, a conversation that stayed with you long after it ended, a sentence you heard at exactly the wrong or right time, a realization that arrived not with excitement but with stillness. At the time, it may not have felt important. Only later did you realize that something inside you had rearranged itself. Sufis say guidance often comes disguised as the ordinary. Khidr, as known through the Qur'anic story of Musa, peace be upon him, represents a kind of knowing that operates beyond surface logic, not because logic is wrong, but because it is limited to what can be immediately seen. Ibn Arabi did not meet Khidr as one meets a stranger. He recognized him as one recognizes a truth that has been approaching for a long time. Recognition is different from discovery. Discovery feels new. Recognition feels inevitable. This is why Ibn Arabi never described the meeting as an event meant to impress others. There is no urgency in his tone, no attempt to convince. Instead, there is reflection, as if he is saying, this could only happen when the heart is quiet enough to notice what has always been near. Have you ever wondered why two people can experience the same moment and walk away with entirely different meanings? One forgets it immediately. The other carries it for years. The difference is not intelligence, it is attentiveness. Ibn Arabi understood that Khidr is not drawn by movement, noise, or effort. He is recognized through stillness, through inward listening, through the kind of awareness that allows meaning to rise on its own without being forced. In everyday life, we are trained to look for signs that shout, clear instructions, immediate outcomes, but spiritual insight rarely works that way. It unfolds gently, often after the moment has passed. Only then do we realize that something was teaching us all along. What Ibn Arabi began to see was not a figure standing before him, but a way of seeing life itself. A shift from asking, "What is happening?" to asking, "What is this showing me?" And once that shift occurs, nothing feels entirely accidental anymore. Could it be that some of the most important encounters in your life did not arrive dramatically, but quietly, disguised as ordinary moments you almost ignored? This is where Ibn Arabi's story truly begins, not with Khidr as a person, but with perception awakening to meaning. And once that door opens, it cannot easily be closed. To understand what Ibn Arabi came to recognize, we must return to a story that already lived quietly inside him. The Qur'anic account of Musa, peace be upon him, and Khidr, not as a tale of miracles, but as a lesson in perception. In the Quran, Khidr is introduced without name or biography. He is simply described as a servant of God, granted mercy and taught knowledge from God's own presence. This anonymity is important. It shifts attention away from personality and toward function. Khidr is not defined by who he is, but by how he sees. When Musa asks to accompany him, the request seems reasonable. Musa is a prophet, a lawgiver, a teacher of people. Yet Khidr warns him immediately, "You will not be able to be patient with me." Not because Musa lacks sincerity, but because the kind of knowledge Khidr operates from does not explain itself in advance. As they travel together, three events unfold, each one deeply unsettling on the surface. A boat is damaged, harming people who had done nothing wrong. A young life is ended without visible justification. A wall is rebuilt for a community that offered no kindness in return. Each time Musa reacts as any morally conscious human would. He questions, he objects, he seeks clarity, and each time Khidr delays the explanation. This delay is not cruelty, it is the lesson itself. Most of us want meaning immediately. When something painful or confusing happens, our first instinct is to ask why. We search for reasons that can settle our discomfort. But the Qur'anic story teaches something quieter and more difficult. Some wisdom only reveals itself after the moment has passed. When Khidr finally explains his actions, everything changes. What looked like harm was protection. What seemed unjust was mercy unfolding over time. What felt wrong in the moment was aligned with a future that Musa could not yet see. Ibn Arabi understood that this story was not meant to elevate Khidr above Musa. It was meant to show the limits of surface perception. In everyday life, we encounter similar moments constantly. A job you lose, a relationship that ends, a door that closes without explanation. At the time, it feels disruptive, even unfair. Only later, sometimes years later, does a deeper logic emerge. Have you ever looked back on an event you once resented and realized it redirected your life in ways you could not have planned? Khidr represents insight that moves ahead of time, not because time is irrelevant, but because meaning unfolds gradually. This is why patience is emphasized so strongly in the story. Not patience as endurance, but patience as trust in unfolding wisdom. Ibn Arabi did not read this Quranic account as history alone. He read it as instruction, as an invitation to loosen the grip on immediate judgment, to allow events to complete their meaning before labeling them. When we rush to define what something means, we often reduce it. We collapse complexity into comfort. Khidr teaches the opposite. Stay with the ambiguity. Let the event finish speaking. This is not a call to abandon reason or ethics. It is a reminder that not all wisdom arrives at the same pace as experience. Some truths ripen slowly, and forcing them early only leads to misunderstanding. Ibn Arabi began to see that Khidr is not encountered only on distant journeys or in ancient stories. He is present wherever perception deepens beyond appearance, wherever someone learns to wait for meaning instead of demanding it. The question, then, is not whether life will present us with confusing moments. It always does. The question is whether we allow those moments the time they need to reveal their hidden order. And if we can learn that kind of patience, perhaps we begin to see what Ibn Arabi saw, not certainty, but a deeper trust in how wisdom moves through the world. As Ibn Arabi reflected on the story of Musa and Khidr, something fundamental began to shift in how he understood the world around him. He no longer saw events as isolated incidents, happening one after another without connection. He began to sense that life itself was speaking, but not in the language of explanations. It was speaking in symbols. For Ibn Arabi, this realization did not turn the world into something mysterious or distant. It made it intimate, personal. Every moment, no matter how ordinary, carried the possibility of meaning, not because it was dramatic, but because it was placed precisely where it was needed. In this way of seeing, reality is not random and it is not blunt. It is subtle. It hints rather than declares. It invites reflection rather than obedience. Think about how symbols work in everyday life. A red light does not explain why you must stop. It simply asks for recognition. A smile can carry reassurance without a single word. Even silence, at times, communicates more than speech ever could. Ibn Arabi understood the world in a similar way. Events were not just happenings. They were messages shaped by timing, context, and inner readiness. What mattered was not the event itself, but the awareness brought to it. This is why Khidr, in Ibn Arabi's understanding, was never just a figure encountered externally. Khidr represented the ability to read life symbolically, to see beyond the surface of what is happening and sense what it is pointing toward. In practical terms, this changes how a person moves through life. When something unexpected occurs, the first question is no longer, "Why is this happening to me?" but "What is this asking of me?" A delay may be asking for patience. A loss may be asking for surrender. A moment of confusion may be asking for humility. The meaning is not fixed. It unfolds in conversation with the heart. Consider moments when life seemed to pause you against your will. A plan interrupted. A path blocked. At the time, it felt like resistance. But later, you may have realized that pause created space to reconsider, to mature, to notice what you had been rushing past. Ibn Arabi believed that when people fail to see symbols, they often become trapped in frustration. They argue with reality instead of listening to it. But when they begin to see symbolically, even difficulty takes on a different texture. It becomes instructive rather than punishing. This does not mean everything is pleasant. Some symbols are uncomfortable. Some truths arrive through loss or disappointment. But even then, the symbol is not there to harm. It is there to realign. Have you ever noticed how the same event can mean different things to different people? One person breaks under it. Another grows quieter and wiser. The event did not change. The reading did. For Ibn Arabi, Khidr embodied this deeper literacy. He did not impose meaning, he revealed it. He did not lecture, he waited. He allowed understanding to rise when the heart was ready to receive it. This is why Sufi wisdom often resists quick conclusions. It asks you to stay present with your experience long enough for its deeper layers to emerge. Rushing to label something as good or bad can obscure what it is truly offering. When Ibn Arabi began to see reality as symbolic, life became less rigid and more responsive. Meaning was no longer something to chase. It was something to notice. And perhaps this is one of the quiet lessons Khidr teaches, that guidance does not always arrive as instruction. Sometimes it arrives as a moment that lingers, waiting for you to ask the right question. What in your life might be speaking to you right now, not loudly, but persistently, waiting to be understood rather than solved? As Ibn Arabi's perception deepened, another insight began to unfold, one that quietly overturned the way he understood contradiction. What appeared to be opposites in life were not truly in conflict. They were, in fact, inseparable. In ordinary thinking, we divide experience into clear categories: ease and hardship, gain and loss, light and darkness. We move through life trying to secure one and avoid the other. But Ibn Arabi began to see that this way of dividing reality was itself the source of much confusion. Khidr, as a symbol of deeper seeing, reveals that opposites do not cancel each other out. They complete each other. Consider how night allows rest and rest allows strength, how silence gives meaning to sound, how absence sharpens appreciation. These pairs are not enemies. One gives shape to the other. The Qur'anic story of Musa and Khidr already hinted at this. The damaged boat and the saved livelihood, the loss of a child and the protection of faith, the wall rebuilt for people who showed no gratitude. Each action appeared negative until its opposite, its hidden purpose, came into view. Ibn Arabi, I recognized that the problem was not the events themselves, but the narrow window through which they were judged. In daily life, this narrowness often shows up in how we react to difficulty. A setback feels like failure. A delay feels like rejection. A period of struggle feels like abandonment. But time has a way of revealing how tightly these opposites are woven together. Have you ever experienced a moment that felt like loss, only to realize later that it spared you from something far more damaging? Or a success that arrived quickly, only to expose weaknesses you were not ready to face? Ibn Arabi, I taught that divine wisdom is not obligated to match human preference. What we label as mercy or hardship often depends on timing rather than truth. A medicine that heals can burn as it enters the body. A lesson that matures the soul can arrive through discomfort. Khidr's way of seeing dissolves the sharp edge between good and bad, not by denying pain but by situating it within a larger harmony. From this view, hardship is not evidence of absence. It is often evidence of attention. This understanding does not make life easier in the moment. It makes it intelligible over time. When Ibn Arabi wrote about divine names, such as the gentle and the compelling, the manifest and the hidden, he emphasized that they are not competing forces. They are expressions of a single reality showing itself in different forms. We struggle when we insist that only one side of experience is acceptable. We grow when we allow both sides to teach us. This does not mean passivity. It means discernment, knowing when to act and when to wait, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to accept and when to seek change. Khidr represents this balance. He does not negate law or reason. He operates in a dimension where timing, consequence, and inner state are fully considered. For Ibn Arabi, learning to see opposites as complementary was not an intellectual exercise. It was a way of surviving life without becoming bitter, of remaining open even when events were difficult to understand. Perhaps this is why some people emerge from hardship with clarity rather than resentment. They have learned to let the experience finish revealing itself before deciding what it means. What if some of the contradictions in your life are not mistakes, but conversations between opposites, working together to shape who you are becoming? When this question settles in the heart, judgment softens. And in that softening, deeper understanding begins to take root. One of the most subtle insights Ibn Arabi carried from his understanding of Khidr concerned time itself. Not time as measured by clocks, but time as experienced by the heart. He noticed that meaning rarely arrives at the same moment as the event. It follows behind, quietly, sometimes long after we have stopped asking for it. In everyday life, we often expect understanding to be immediate. When something happens, we want to know what it means right away. We want clarity before patience, reassurance before reflection. But Ibn Arabi came to see that wisdom does not operate on urgency. It operates on readiness. Think about how many things in your life only became clear later. A decision you once questioned, a person you misunderstood, a hardship you resisted. At the time, you could not see its place in the larger pattern. Only with distance did its role begin to emerge. This delay is not a flaw in understanding. It is part of its design. Ibn Arabi wrote that creation is not something that happened once in the distant past. It is continuously unfolding. In every moment, life is being renewed, and so is your capacity to understand it. You are not the same person you were when a certain event occurred. And because you have changed, the event reveals new layers of meaning. Khidr symbolizes this dimension of insight, one that sees across moments rather than within a single instant. From this perspective, time is not an obstacle to wisdom. It is the space in which wisdom matures. Consider how children experience events differently than adults. A disappointment that feels overwhelming early in life may later be understood as a necessary redirection. What once felt like rejection may later be recognized as protection. The event did not change. The observer did. Have you ever returned to a memory and realized it no longer felt the same? The emotion softened, the edges blurred. What once hurt now instructs. This is one of the quiet mercies of time. It gives experiences room to complete their work on us. Ibn Arabi understood that impatience often comes from wanting meaning before transformation. We ask for answers while remaining unchanged. But Khidr's wisdom suggests something different. Understanding follows inner movement. As the heart shifts, meaning becomes visible. This is why some people repeat the same lessons in different forms. The events keep returning because their meaning has not yet been integrated. Once the lesson settles, the pattern dissolves. Khidr's way is not to explain prematurely. It is to allow life to teach through sequence, timing, and return. When we accept that meaning may arrive late, our relationship with life changes. We stop demanding immediate clarity and begin cultivating attentiveness. We learn to say, "I don't understand this yet," without despair. There is humility in that word "yet." It leaves room for growth. It trusts that what is unclear now may become luminous later. Perhaps this is why some insights only appear when we stop chasing them. When we live forward with sincerity and allow understanding to catch up in its own time. What in your life might still be unfolding its meaning, waiting not for explanation, but for you to become ready to see it. This patience with time is not resignation. It is alignment. And in that alignment, Ibn Arabi found a deeper peace, one that did not depend on having all the answers, but on trusting how wisdom reveals itself. As Ibn Arabi's understanding matured, his relationship with Khidr changed in a quiet but profound way. Khidr was no longer something to be encountered outwardly. He became something to be recognized inwardly, not a figure to search for, but a state to grow into. Ibn Arabi wrote that there are moments when knowledge arrives without instruction. No teacher explains it. No book delivers it. It simply appears, complete, precise, and undeniable, not because it is dramatic, but because it feels deeply aligned. He identified this as a form of knowing that arises from presence rather than effort. Khidr, in this sense, represents the consciousness that becomes available when the heart is sufficiently clear, when distractions settle, when motives simplify, when listening becomes more important than speaking. In everyday life, we experience brief versions of this state without numbing it. You may suddenly understand someone you once judged harshly. You may recognize a mistake without needing to be told. You may feel guided to act or not act without being able to explain why. These moments are not irrational. They are not mystical fantasies. They are the result of accumulated awareness finally settling into clarity. Ibn Arabi believed that when the heart is purified of constant agitation, it becomes receptive. Not passive, but receptive. It begins to sense alignment rather than just options. This is why Sufi practice emphasizes silence, restraint, and reflection, not as withdrawal from life, but as preparation to meet it wisely. Khidr, then, is not external guidance interrupting your will. He is inner clarity emerging when the noise quiets. Have you ever noticed how some realizations arrive only when you stop forcing them? When you step away from urgency and allow understanding to surface naturally. This is the Khidr state Ibn Arabi pointed toward. A way of being where wisdom is not sought aggressively, but received attentively. This does not mean every impulse is guidance. Discernment remains essential. But Ibn Arabi warned that when the heart is restless, even truth can feel confusing. And when the heart is calm, even complexity can feel coherent. In this way, Khidr becomes less about who appears and more about how you are seeing. When perception is fragmented, guidance feels distant. When perception is unified, guidance feels immediate. This is why Ibn Arabi said that some people meet Khidr many times without recognizing him, while others recognize him without ever meeting a form. Recognition is not about sight. It is about resonance. When something aligns deeply, it carries a quiet certainty, not loud confidence but steady clarity. Perhaps you have experienced this in moments of still decision, choosing what is right even when it is difficult, or stepping away from something tempting because it feels misaligned. No voice speaks, no sign flashes, yet you know. Khidr, in this understanding, is the presence of wisdom when it flows unobstructed. The more the heart clears, the more this state becomes accessible, not as perfection but as orientation, a direction toward truth rather than distraction. And when Ibn Arabi arrived at this understanding, the question changed. It was no longer, when will I meet Khidr? It became, am I becoming capable of recognizing guidance when it appears? That question does not demand an answer. It invites a way of living, one rooted in awareness, patience, and trust in the quiet intelligence woven into everyday life. By the end of his life, Ibn Arabi no longer spoke about Khidr as someone to be found. He spoke of him as something to be recognized, not a meeting that happens once, but an awareness that deepens over time. What Ibn Arabi saw was not a figure standing apart from the world. He saw guidance woven into the fabric of everyday life, appearing through moments that ask for patience, through events that reveal their meaning slowly, through realizations that arrive only when the heart becomes quiet enough to receive them. Khidr, in this sense, is not rare. What is rare is the kind of attention that notices him. When life unsettles you, when understanding seems delayed, when opposites collide and leave you uncertain, these are often the moments where meaning is closest, not farthest. The question is not whether guidance is present, but whether you are listening in the right way. So pause for a moment and reflect. Have you ever experienced a small, ordinary moment that later changed how you understood everything that came before it? If this reflection resonated with you, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Voice of Sufism, and turn on the bell icon so you don't miss future reflections. And if you feel comfortable, share your experience in the comments. Sometimes one person's insight becomes another person's reassurance. You'll also see related videos appearing on your screen now, exploring more signs, meanings, and quiet lessons drawn from everyday life. Perhaps the real question Ibn Arabi leaves us with is not whether Khidr is near, but whether we are becoming attentive enough to recognize guidance when it has been speaking to us all along.